This is our last form that I'm going to show you, and this is the summary of student comprehension performance. And it looks like this, and I'm trying to get it as large as I can in order for you to see the numbers. It's going to be difficult because it's really tiny print to begin with when you're filling out this form. But I want to show you a couple things that I did, and I'm going to do that using the mouse, so you're not going to see me for a little bit. But I want to show you over here, what I did was I put in primer 1, 2, and so that, again, your form's going to look a little different. I'm just using the data from this particular student, which is older than the newer forms, so I apologize for that. But out to the side, you'll see I also put AAA, LLT, LLI, LLT, and what I did that for is so that I know that this reader read passages A initially for the oral reading. I know that they read D for the silent reading. And then I also gave them the longer passages because LLI and LLT, those passages are 250 words. So if you have a reader that whizzes through these 100-word passages, especially an older reader, you'll probably want to move them to the LLI or the LLT. They are for silent reading. But they definitely will give you some more information. They are for oral reading or silent reading, either way. The forms look a little different, but they are definitely some good information for you if you think maybe the 100-word passages are making your reader look like maybe they can do more than they can because they're not as challenging and as much to remember as they read. So you will see on this form that you enter the questions that are missed. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the information from Kirk's comprehension passages and we're going to enter them in on the form. And I've told you before how we have, let's see if I can get back to that. Sorry. Okay, you will see on this form, this is the comprehension question side and the retelling side. And Kirk answered on the primer level, he answered all 10 questions accurately. So he had 0 questions missed. And you can see from the pluses, and then that was an independent comprehension for him on that page. And so he had 0 questions missed. On grade 1, you will see that he missed half of a question, and that was the question number 2. And that's all he missed on this section, so also independent. And finally, on grade 2, he missed 3.5 comprehension questions. But the reason I didn't go on to grade 3, if you recall, his grade 2 oral reading was frustration for him. And so when we take this instructional comprehension and we put it with that frustration level oral reading, when we use that chart that we talked about, then we see that that's an overall level of frustration for him, even though he is still doing some comprehending. But what I wanted you to notice about this form, if you recall those letters down the side, we talked last time that the T is topic, the F is factual, the I is inferential, the E is an evaluative type question, and a V is vocabulary. So when we get back to the comprehension form, you will see those letters, or those words. We're going to be analyzing comprehension by the type of questions that they missed and by higher level versus lower level. And when we're talking about that in the, for this purpose, the higher level questions are everything except factual. The factual questions are those yes or no right there in the book. I can put my finger on it. Questions, 1 answer only. Those are our low level. Everything else is considered high level. But we're going to first look at the errors that he made in his oral and silent reading in comprehension by question type. So here we are back to this form, and we're looking at the types of questions. And if you follow my mouse here, you will see that initially Kirk missed in his primer passage, he missed 0 oral factual questions. He missed 0 on all of them, if you recall. In his primer level, he had 100% accuracy. So I put a 0 under the topic question, I put a 0 under the evaluation, a 0 under the inference, and a 0 under the oral, because those are the number of questions that he missed of each type. Now, if I look at the next level, he missed half of a question. If you recall, first grade, he only missed half of a question for oral reading. So I put 0.5 out of 6, because there were 6 factual questions. So he missed 0.5. He missed 0 on all of the other questions. And then for second grade, he missed 2 factual, and then he missed half of an evaluation question and 1 of the vocabulary, 1 out of 1. He missed 1 vocabulary question. So that is his total numbers of missed oral. Now, I don't have the papers to show you for his silent, but I went ahead and filled it in for you here. He did miss 1 silent factual question on the first level. He missed 0 on the topic and the primer. He missed 1 evaluation, and he missed 0 and 0 on the inference and the vocabulary for the primer of silent reading. I went ahead and filled that in for the first grade passage as well. He missed 2 out of 6 factual questions when he read silently on the first grade passage. Then over here he went to 0. He had 0 missed on the evaluation. He missed 1 inferential question, and he missed 0 on the vocabulary for silent reading. And then finally for his silent reading for the second grade passage, he missed 3 out of 6 factual questions. He missed the 1 topic question, and he missed 1 vocabulary question. So that put him at 5. It put him at 5 errors, which would have been frustration for silent reading as well. So we didn't go on any further for him. Now, if I gave an additional B, level B or C or something else, I would put out to the side here what passages that I used, which I've shared that with you before. But as we move down, let's look at how these totals come together. So we're looking at ratios here. And again, this is going to be a little difficult to see because we have such tiny print. But what I did up here is I added all of the errors that he made orally that were factual. And so there was 0 plus 0.5 plus 2. So that I came up with 2.5. How many total factual questions were there? There were 18, as you can see, 6 plus 6 plus 6. Up here, you can see there were 6 plus 6 plus 6, that's 18. So I have 2.5 missed questions out of 18. And if I divide that, that tells me 14% of the factual questions were missed. Not a terrible number. Now, when I look at the other side, the silent, out of all 18 questions, he missed 6. So 6 out of 18 silent questions for the passages that we did with him. And that gave me a 6 out of 18, a 33% questions missed. So actually quite a bit of difference when he read silently on the factual information that he received. Now, we're going to look at overall factual, combining silent and oral, and this is where sometimes people get a little confused, but if you keep in mind that we're doing ratios, we're going to do the same thing to both sides of the ratio. So we have 8, so we added 2, we have 8.5 because we added 2.5 plus 6 for the total number of factual questions that our reader missed, 8.5. And we're going to divide that by 36 because 18 and 18 is 36. So that's going to give us the total number of factual questions overall, oral and silent. And that gives us 36. And we divide that, that gives us 24%. So about a fourth of the questions that were factual, our reader missed. Okay, so that's some good information. It's not super high, but it is helpful to know. And as we look at the other numbers, we'll see that, maybe that is an area that with silent reading that we need to look a little more carefully at. Maybe he's not reading as carefully when he's reading silently, and maybe he needs that auditory feedback by reading orally, especially since he's just still a second grader reading on a first grade level. So that gives us our factual questions. We're going to do the same thing with the topic, the evaluation, the inference, and the vocabulary. And so when you go back through and look at my form, you'll see I added 0 out of 3. there's not as many questions in each of these sections, so it's a little simpler. He missed one silent topic question out of 3. Did my percentages, came up with 1 out of 6 for both. 17% overall questions missed for the topic. So he really missed 1 out of 6 topics. So again, not terrible, but not a high number of questions to really consider. But out of 6, that's not terrible. That's, you know, 80%ish. So then we're going to do the same thing with the evaluation questions. Again, only 3 each for silent and oral. We add those together and we get that he missed 1.5 out of 6, which was a 25% percent missed out of all of the evaluation questions. Did the same thing with inference and we got 17%. Same thing with vocabulary and 33%. So what I noticed about the vocabulary is that he missed 2 out of the 6 vocab questions. So 4 of them he got right and he did very well with, but 2 of them he missed. So 33% of his vocabulary questions were a challenge for him. So what does that mean that that's an issue? Not necessarily, because again, it was only 6 questions. However, when you compare it to the other scores here for the comprehension percentages, it is one of the higher ones. So when I look at this, not really anything to me jumps out as being super red flag for comprehension for Kirk. And as we mentioned before, his comprehension was a lot better than the actual passage reading, the oral reading. However, there are some strengths and areas that we can improve upon. And so we can talk about how that in general comprehension is a strength for Kirk, but within that framework, we can talk about that factual questions and evaluation and vocabulary questions were the ones that were a little more challenging for him versus the inferential and the topic questions. Now, you know, every reader's going to look completely different in this particular section because they're going to have, you know, there's going to be particular questions that are easier for them than others. And again, the more passages that you have your reader, you assess your reader with, the more accurate these numbers are going to be. So you're going to be looking at these overall numbers to try to look for trends and patterns to see, are there some things that we can determine to be needs for our reader. So for strengths and weaknesses, I would definitely have comprehension listed as a strength in general, but I would focus in on a couple of these areas, maybe for the reader's weaknesses. I wouldn't necessarily pick every single one of them because he has a lot of needs in the oral reading, oral reading section, but I would perhaps select the factual or the vocabulary questions as being an area that we could continue to work on and maybe give some vocabulary strategies for during reading to help that reader. And so that's how we're going to compare the analysis of the comprehension questions by question type. Now, I told you we're going to look at it 2 ways. The second way is by high level and low level. Well, we already have the low level figured out because I told you that was only factual questions. Factual questions are the only ones that we're going to consider low level. So that part's already done. So you'll see I circled that section and I put this arrow down here. So all you have to do is transfer your factual numbers right here. And that's the same thing as what I have circled up there because this is lower level comprehension, factual questions only. It's on the form, it's in the book, it's in the slides, so you can walk yourself through this step by step and fill this form out using these examples. But on the other side, we do have to combine all of those other types of questions. So I'm going to page back up just for a minute so that you can see that we have topic, evaluation, inference, and vocabulary. So we're going to take all 4 of these areas and combine them down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these numbers to combine down here. So if you remember, we have topic. So we're going to take the number of oral reading questions, and we're going to add for all of these remaining categories the number of oral questions missed. 0.501. So for the oral, we have just a second, let me check something. Okay, sorry about that. I did actually have an error on my form, and that can happen very easily when you're counting, so I will adjust that. But back to looking at how many errors that they made orally with all four of these question categories. So 0 plus 0.5 plus 0 plus 1 is 1.5, and there were 3, 6, 9, 12 oral questions that we're talking about, so out of 12. And then over here, 4 out of 12, because we have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. So 4 and then out of 12. And then we're going to combine that, and we have this 5.5 total questions, 1.5 plus 4, 5.5, 12 plus 12, 24, and we divide that to get 23%. So what we know is that the lower level comprehension questions, when we look at overall oral and silent, Kirk missed 24% of them. When we look at the higher level comprehension questions, which is all four of these other categories, then overall, when we combine silent and oral, he missed 23%. So when you look at those two numbers and compare oral, factual versus higher level, not a whole lot of difference. So that didn't give us a whole lot of information. It's telling us generally he's getting the information, 75% comprehension. It's not super high, but it's also not in a frustration level area. Even for the text that was frustration for him when he was reading it orally. So these numbers can give us some information as far as comprehension, and your reader may have bigger gaps here. I know several of you that I've talked to that you have a reader who comprehension is a real issue with. Your numbers are going to look very different, and you're going to have a lot of numbers to put on this form. So, that's something that we can work through together if you need to. You can send it to me, and I can mark it up and send it back to you, tell you, where I think where you might have an error, because it's really important that we do this form accurately and the form prior to it, the qualitative analysis form, because that's where we're going to get a lot of good information about our reader. And if we have incorrect percentages, that's going to lead us in a path in the wrong direction. And my mistake that I made here with one error, it was 7% versus 23%. So that wasn't a huge problem. But let's say if I had completely forgot a category or missed a section, adding in, that's going to change the numbers. And with only 24 questions, we really want our numbers to be, that we're evaluating, we really want our numbers to be accurate. So it's very important that these forms are done correctly, and you will lose points if these forms are not accurately completed, because it's going to cause you to make decisions. Generally, it causes you to look at a reader in a different way, or it makes you think that they can do things that they can't, or maybe that you're sliding them and not giving them credit for things that they are doing very well. So these are the forms that we're going to complete after giving all of the BRI, and I know they're difficult to see in this presentation and the previous video. So please talk with me, ask me questions. You guys are doing a great job doing that. You're really catching on to a lot of material that's very challenging to learn in a distance format such as this without me having a document camera or the tools that we can work together interactively. So I appreciate your patience and your willingness to ask questions and pursue to do the best that you can on this case study in our current situation. Thanks. Have a great week.